Welcome back to the Unfortunate Diehards podcast. Hashtag number 82, Thomas Kopecky. Wow, what a pull. Wow. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. It is trade deadline day. The deadline is about to be done in 45 minutes. My name is Evan. I'm an Ottawa Senators fan. We have lots to talk about. Introduce yourself, boys.
I'm Omar. I'm the Leafs fan.
I'm Sufyan and I'm a Cavs fan. Bro.
Amazing. Well,
Bro.
if you just lay it on us.
Okay, well, I'm going to go through standings pretty quick because as I'm reading Twitter, there's just more stuff happening as we speak.
Yes, there is.
Peter Mrazek involved, big guy, to talk about there. We'll start with the Western Conference. The top three teams in the Central are Winnipeg, Dallas, and Minnesota at 90 points, 84 points, and 76 points. In the Pacific, it's Vegas, Edmonton, and LA, 80 points, 76 points, and 71 points. The two top teams in the wild card are Colorado and Calgary at 76 and 68. Vancouver is just out of 67. St. Louis is just out of 66. Utah is 3 points out of 65. Then after that, it's Anaheim, Seattle, Nashville, Chicago, and San Jose, all pretty much out of it indefinitely. In the East, the Atlantic Division, it's Florida, Toronto, and Tampa with 81, 79, and 78 points. In the Metro, it's Washington, Carolina, and New Jersey Devils at 88, 78, and 72. The top two teams in the wildcard right now is Columbus and Ottawa. Tied with Ottawa are the Rangers at 67 points. Detroit is 2 points out, or Detroit is 1 point out. Montreal's 1 point out. The Bruins are 3 points out. And then it's the Islanders, Flyers, Penguins, and Buffalo. Okay. Where do we start?
I say we start with Mikko Rantanen being traded again.
Yes, that's probably the right place to start.
So let me pull this up.
Big, in my opinion, big L for Carolina. But at the time of filming this, we don't know what they're going to do still. They might flip the first round picks they got into something here. So let's see.
I don't think anything they trade now is going to be as good as...
Yeah, but I mean, they might get some consolation prize. So I don't know. We'll see.
So the full trade details there is Mikko Rantanen traded to Dallas with an extension in place at 8 years and $12 million a year. Carolina gets Logan Stankoven, a first-round pick, which is TBD on the year, another first-round pick, which is TBD on the year, and then there's more smaller pieces apparently going to Carolina, which are also TBD. But, yeah. Is Evan frozen, or is he just like that?
He's nodding. So, Rantanen to Dallas. So he's the contract is official, right? 8 years for $12 million.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that makes Dallas even more of a weapon. So if you want to read out their top 9 again, it's like every line's a first or second line.
Yeah, like I had trouble. Like the first line is pretty concrete, but their middle six is like interchangeable. So Robertson, Hintz, Rantanen, Ben, Johnston, Granlund, and then Marchment, Duchesne, and then either Dadonov or Bork. And then they have Seguin skating again, so he could be their fourth line winger. Sure.
Yeah, Seguin and Seguin.
Or I guess on their third line right wing with like he'd be probably around there, or playing with Ben. Who knows?
Yeah, considering he was productive before he got injured anyway, so I could see him still being used properly. I mean that team is insane. I don't know who's going to beat that team.
Yeah, they have a star at every single position. They have multiple stars on offense. They have a number one defenseman that's like top 5 arguably and top 10 in the league for sure. And then Thomas Harley's a great defenseman as well. Esa Lindell goes on. And then you have Ottinger and that like
Cody
I don't know. Sure. Matt Dumba. Sure.
That's The Cody Cece trade is one I don't. I mean, the Michael Granlund trade was also really good, which happened a while ago now. But
Yeah. Their power plays, both their power plays. So Rantanen, Hintz, Robertson, Johnston, Heiskanen when he's back, and then Ben, Duchesne, Marchment, Granlund, Harley. Maybe Sagan makes that, I don't know, over Marchment or Granlund or whatever, but they're going to have a. I don't know. The West is going to be an interesting one.
yeah, I feel bad for Minnesota, Minnesota or Colorado.
Minnesota, Colorado, Oilers, Kings, Knights, like they just don't. On paper, they don't aren't on the same level as Dallas right now in any capacity.
Although we do say that about Dallas previously as well. So,
but they've never had this.
They never had they never added someone like a Rantanen, sure, but so this takes them to another level, definitely. But we just have to see if they get it done with him now, which I think they probably can.
I think the thing for me too is that like they have all these players on like pretty long-term deals as well. Like Rantanen signed now, obviously. Robertson's probably going to need another contract. I think he signed a bridge. Same with Harley. They have Heiskanen for a while. They have Hintz for a while. Wyatt Johnston is apparently in talks to get a contract extension before the deadline ends. Like, it's going to be a good team for the foreseeable future, especially with the cap going up. Like, they're right up against it right now, but it's going to, like, they'll continue to be able to add pieces as we go on. The Ottinger contract, I don't know, did he sign long term or not?
Yeah, he signed 8.25.
Okay, so they have him locked up.
That was when every goalie signed for 8.25.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know. This is going to be a good team for a very long time. It does help that they have no state income tax, I think. that.
Yeah, and that's kind of frustrating. Like, I don't know how they fix this, because now, like, you look at every team that doesn't have state tax, being Vegas, Dallas, and then both Florida teams. Maybe there's one more, but those are like you could argue the 4 best teams in the NHL, because so many players want to go there. They're never on their no trade list. People want to go there as free agents. Like, people are like, it's great. It's better weather. I get more money. Like there's not a lot of negatives going down there. So it's like, unless you're a big market, like a lot of these northern teams, you have to trade for players. You're not getting this luxury of people being like forcing their way to you. Which, like, as teams that aren't like if the Capitals get bad, Sufi, in my opinion, it's not a super desirable location, in my opinion. So like if and when Ovechkin retires and a lot of their players, either whether it's Chikrin moves on, whatever, like I could see like Toronto's kind of a like so many players come from there, they'll always kind of be that. But like Ottawa and Washington, it's like those aren't sexy places to live and aren't places that maybe people really want to go. So it's harder for markets like that to be able to retain people. And you've had the luxury of having one of the best players, if not, you could, if you wanted to argue, the best player of the past 20 years, to have people go there. But when he's gone, it's like, is Dylan Strome or Dubois going to be enough for like a big winger to want to go there, or a free agent defenseman? Probably not. So
I'm not overly concerned on that for the Caps, because I think that
I know. I'm just saying in general, it can be more difficult for us.
What you're saying is right. With the Caps is just the fact that, like, I think we tried to do with Ottawa what Ottawa did, where they try to sign guys to extensions when they're like getting there but not already there. Like, we signed Strome to a good deal. We got Dubois in a trade, and like he signed long term. But I think for those teams, it's just important to draft well, and that's why I'm not overly concerned with our team, because we've drafted pretty well. Vibes are pretty high, so I think we have less trouble than Canadian teams to retain players.
But speaking of Canadian teams, and since we're a Sens, Leafs, and Caps podcast, the Toronto Maple Leafs also made a splash. Omar, if you want to touch on that.
Yeah, so Scott Laughton to the Leafs, and it's a first rounder plus Nikita Grebenkin going over to Philadelphia, and then it's also a 4th and 6th rounder from Philly coming back to Toronto, I believe. I mean,
50,
kind of got the
there's retention on Lawton as well, 50%.
Oh, 50% retain on Lawton. The first round pick going to Philly is a 2027, and apparently it's top 10 protected. So I guess the Leafs 2026 first round pick is still in play if they're out there trying to do something. I don't know if I think they're still after one right-handed D-man if they're going to find someone before the deadline. But we'll see what they do there. But no, Scott Lawton's good. It's good. Obviously, it's a first round pick. Is not an ideal giveaway for a third line center. And I'm not worried about the fact that we gave up Grebenkin. He's probably our like C-level prospect, which is fine. But this, I guess, is what deadline prices are deadline prices. Luke Shen went for a second. What can we do? Yeah, I mean, I like what he brings to the Leafs. Do I think Scott Lawton is the answer against what Tampa did with Yanni Gordon and Oliver Borgstrand? I don't think so. I don't know if Scott is also the answer to, Florida getting Seth Jones at this point, but
you can look at it as each of those top teams. So whether it's Sam Bennett or Yanni Gordon, they have a third line center, or like I would say, like, yes, Sam Bennett probably plays second line, but like,
yeah,
traditionally,
center,
traditionally third line center, but good ones at that. But they're like, I'm trying not to swear, annoying, frustrating, just pain in the butts to play against. And Scott Lawton is that. And so, not saying is he the answer? Is he like a game changer? No, but he can help change a game and make it harder on the opposing team's defensemen and their star players.
And I think having, I think regardless of what our opinion is of Scott Lawton, I think Scott Lawton is in my opinion, a massive upgrade over Max Domi. Just because Max Domi is not someone I think is who you should be going with as your third line center into a playoff run. I just don't think Max Domi is. I think Max Domi has proven that he's definitely better on the wing. So I think having Scott Lawton there, a bigger guy, someone who can crash the net more. I think Max Domi doesn't really have that part of his game, and Scott Lawton can bring that to the third line. I think I think it'll be a good. I think Leafs fans are gonna like him. I think I'm gonna like him. Do I think that this move is what we need to win a cup or something? I'm not going to go that far, but I think we're going to like him as a player. I think he helps our chances. Yeah, for sure. The fact that it's 50% retained and that he's not a rental, he's here for, I think, one more year, his contract is. So giving up a first rounder in 2027, top 10 protected, we get him for at least one more year. It's not just a straight rental deal. It's just a little bit of a silver lining too. So I'm for it. I'm happy. I thought Treliving wasn't going to do anything when we were hitting about like 1 p.m. and I wasn't hearing anything. Because usually you go through Twitter feeds and whatnot and you're like, okay, like there'll be, various analysts being like, oh, this is like in the works. So this is this conversation happening between these teams, whatever. Leafs were just nowhere in any of that. So I was like, doesn't look like, I was like, I'm sure they're making calls and like trying to figure stuff out, but nothing was apparently imminent, which I was like, okay, well, I don't know if they're going to really do anything. I'm pretty sure Treliving last year didn't really do anything either. But yeah, we'll see if another deal comes in.
So, on to the next team. Sufi, your team has made a move so far. What are your thoughts on that?
It's Beauvillier for a second. I'm not happy, and nor am I unhappy with this trade. We can move on.
Let's go with the big one. I think
Sufi's usually yapping about the Washington Capitals and nothing to say.
I actually think
this isn't too much.
Oh my gosh! Someone just speak.
Like with the Caps, I was apprehensive with this deadline because I wanted players, but didn't want to give up too much because we're kind of contending. We're set up for the future. I don't really want to play with that much. Like I don't want to give up any of our top prospects like Leonard, Crystal, Hudson, and the other ones that I cannot remember right now. So I wasn't really keen on trading those guys. Our first round pick next year, I didn't really care about as much. So something could still happen. Apparently we're doing stuff. So there's not much for me to comment on. Like Verana got put on waivers. We replaced him with Beauvillier, like bit of an upgrade, but I don't really see that being that much of a game changer for us. So there's not really much for me to talk on with that until we do something more. But yeah, we can move on to Ottawa. I think they're
The big splash
of
out
our
of all three of
of our
us.
three
Yeah,
teams. Yeah, of
yeah.
the three of us, it's the most random trade, but it's also the biggest one. So
It was very random. I had no inkling this was gonna happen.
yeah. Do you want me to give trade details? Or do you want to do it, Evan?
You can go ahead, and then I'll talk about it.
So Ottawa acquires Dylan Cousin, Dennis Gilbert, and a 2026 second round pick for Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard Docker. No salary retention on either side.
So initially, when I saw the main pieces being Norris and Cousins, it kind of like perplexed me. I was like, this is a very lateral move. They're both probably pretty good second line centers. Do play very differently, but Cousins may be a little bigger, maybe a little more physical. Like Norris does hit a lot, but it's not overly thick. Norris being more of a shooter. So to me, it was kind of like, is this just a move to make a move? Especially this being Tkachuk's best friend. Like, that's probably an interesting strategy. But so my thought process is to kind of justify it. Norris is the first time he's been healthy, like fully healthy for an extended period of time in like 3 years. And he's just scored his 20th goal. So to me, you're trading a guy when he's on the up because he could genuinely like hit someone awkwardly or whatever next game and be out the rest of the season with his like third or fourth shoulder injury. So to get someone who doesn't have an injury history and kind of like Bennett or Lawton or whatever is like annoying to play against, like maybe Norris is in like a defensive manner, but not as much so in like just a pest. And that's what I think the Senators are trying to do, getting Nick Cousins, having Brady Tkachuk, Ridley Gregg. Like, they have players who are just kind of annoying. David Perron. You don't like playing against them. They just like a little slash after the whistle. Like, there's always just something going on. And then to get a second round pick as well, I feel like that kind of put it like, okay, this is like probably a win for Ottawa, even more so if Norris gets injured. Not that I want him to, but just having kind of a similar player and gaining a pick. Jacob Bernard Docker was a first-round pick. He's been okay when he has played, so maybe he'll get more of a chance somewhere in Buffalo. I know they have quite a few defensemen, so maybe they're looking on moving someone else. Who knows? But I think overall pretty neutral on the trade. Does suck. Like, it is a business move for the Tkachuk camp. That could be a reason why he wants to stay and continue to stay and play for Ottawa, playing with his best friend. But now that he's gone, could be a little more difficult. But who knows? Maybe, Dylan Cousins brings a whole other element and being more so in the race for playoffs with, in my opinion, a better overall team on paper and not. Just brings the best out of him. They both scored 30 goals once, so we'll see what happens. And yeah, pretty neutral, but I'd say slightly positive on the trade.
I was pretty when I first saw it, I was like, this doesn't really seem like either team is really making a difference to each other. But when I looked at both Cousins and Norris a bit closer, I was like, wait a second, this actually is better for Ottawa, I think. 3 years younger. I think his Norris had his good season of like 35 goals or whatever before he had like that shoulder surgery and whatnot. So I think since then he hasn't really been the same player. And I think Cousins has more potential upside. So I think it's worth a shot. Also, he's Canadian. Bring in the Canadians.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of echo the same sentiment. I think that it's going to be interesting to see what these players do because Cousins has been like, since his 73-point seasons, has been like 2 like ridiculously bad years. I'm curious to see what changes in like a bit of a more motivated environment, I guess.
Where's he going to play?
See what happens. Second line center, I'd assume.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
But you're trading. The thing for me is you're trading a goal scorer for a playmaker. I'm curious to see how that works in Ottawa because they don't really have that many pure goal scorers. in my opinion.
I mean,
Well, that's the thing.
Norris
But
is
with
the number
Norris's
one.
injury, my thought is, so Kachuk's a goal scorer. Then you have a ton of perimeter guys, and I would say Norris is also a perimeter guy. Not saying that Cousins isn't, but from what people hear, I've heard on Chicklets and stuff, like, he's a guy that might be more comfortable not always playing on the perimeter, and that could be advantageous for the Senators.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, I'm just curious to see what that looks like, because, I mean, Kachuk is he's more of like a power forward than a goal scorer, in my opinion, but it's more like he's more of an interior player where you're right, they're like surrounded by perimeter players. So we'll see how it looks. I could see Cousins actually working with Kachuk, where he's more of like a speed guy. Kachuk gets the net, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know. I think we're going to see pretty instantaneous impacts from both of them, and we'll see where that takes us. I think Norris is hopefully going to end up on a line with Tage Thompson, or it's going to be a pretty rough go for him. But yeah, we can move on to the next big trade, I would say. Brock Nelson, I guess, to Colorado. This was a pretty hefty return for the Islanders. So it was Brock Nelson and William Dufour for a 2026 or 2027 first. I don't know what that means, but I'm assuming it's conditional. A conditional third-round pick for in 2028. Callum Ritchie, pretty top-tier prospect for Colorado. Oliver Shillington, who is now on the Ducks after 10 minutes on the Islanders, and 50% retained on Brock Nelson's contract. So I think Colorado was trying to make an upgrade at center. Middlestat hasn't been performing as they'd hoped, like considering how he was last year and the year before, but it is an upgrade in that regard. But I don't know if it necessarily puts them into a bigger conversation for like a cup run. I think that their superstars are still going to carry the load there, and Nelson's going to be a decent supplement. They did move Middlestat for Charlie Coyle, which we can talk about as well in cohesion with this trade, because Coyle got moved for Middlestat and a couple of other things. I think it was a second and some random prospect. So I don't know. Nelson and Coyle, they get really big down the middle. So I don't know. I don't really think this really puts Colorado that much further ahead, but it definitely gives them a better outlook than they had before the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, Nelson hasn't had the best season himself, but change of scenery, I guess. I don't know. It is a pretty hefty return, or it's a decently big price to pay for Brock Nelson at 30, whatever he is.
It's basically 2 first rounders. Callum Ritchie was a first rounder, and he's like a really good prospect.
Yeah, I almost think they I'm gonna assume they kicked tires on a couple of other guys. Like they must have tried Braden Shen. Yeah. So I mean, Brock Nelson's good in theory. He hasn't been so much on the ice this year. That could be things just not working out in New York for him. So this year, so maybe in Colorado it's a change and he kind of wakes up, which is I think what Colorado's hoping, I would assume. In his career, how much playoff experience does Brock Nelson have?
I mean, Brock Nelson, the Islanders have been in pretty long runs, so I assume decent.
When Brock Nelson was a part of all of those?
I don't think. I would assume so.
Okay, he's played 78 playoff games.
He's played 78 playoff games.
It's not bad. Yeah,
and he's I
don't mind that for.
He had 3 straight 30-goal years. Yeah, he's gonna end up near 30 this year. Like, he's definitely picked it up of late. Like, he's had pretty much since you traded him in fantasy, he's been pretty fucking good. So, this is an interesting trade for me in that regard. But, yeah, I don't know. The Charlie Coyle thing too, third line center, overpaid, is going to be better than what they had there before, I guess. But yeah.
All right, what other big trades do we have to announce or talk about? Or just some trades you can just rattle off if we don't necessarily need to touch on them?
How about I'll say the trade, you say you like it for which team you like it for, and if it's going to make an impact, you don't really have to go into depth. Okay?
Sure.
I'll just start at the top. Mrazek and Craig Smith go to Detroit, Joe Veleno to Chicago.
Detroit has like 400 goalies.
I don't know how Mrazek...
So did Chicago did as well.
Yeah,
I'll be honest, I think this is more of a Craig Smith situation than Mrazek. Like, I think they wanted more depth in their lineup. But Joe Veleno was not that much
I
worse.
honestly don't have an opinion.
I'll give it to Chicago. I think that they want to get something for Mrazek because he was kind of expendable.
Yeah.
I already know your guys' opinions on this. We have very different ones. Brendan Tanev to Winnipeg for a second rounder to Seattle.
I like that for Winnipeg.
Yeah, I agree.
I like it for Seattle. Getting a second rounder for a pretty useless player is a good trade.
You could like it for both.
I don't like it for Winnipeg. So, Luke Shen to Winnipeg for a second and a fourth to Pittsburgh.
I like that for Winnipeg too.
Yep.
This
And
one,
honestly, I like that for Pittsburgh. Like they took Luke Shen.
Yeah.
I think Dubas did well there. I'll give him that.
Kuzmenko and a seventh to LA, a third round pick to Philly, and 50% retained on Kuzmenko's contract.
I don't. I like that for I like that for Calgary.
What, Calgary?
No,
LA.
I like that for Philly. I like that for Philly.
Okay.
So
I agree.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really see where he fits in LA, but sure. Yeah, I want to mention him because the poor guy got traded 10 minutes after. Anaheim Ducks get Oliver Shillington for future considerations to the Islanders.
What a win by the Ducks.
Give it to him. Boston acquires Jacob Lauko. Don't know if I'm saying that right. The other guy, Marit Kuznetsov, and a sixth for Justin Brazeau to Minnesota.
I like that from Minnesota. I don't know who those players are that's going to Boston, so I have no comment.
That's just such a mid-ass trade all over.
I mean,
I like
Brazeau,
it for
I think, will help
Brazeau's
Minnesota,
a
sure.
pretty good player.
Yeah.
Wallman to Edmonton for Carl Berglund and a conditional first in 2026.
I like it for San Jose. 'Cause didn't they get him for like nothing?
They got him for a second.
Yeah, I think I like that for
Yep.
I think it'll help Edmonton, but I think I like that return for San Jose more.
I like it for both teams. I think Edmonton needed a defenseman. I don't think they really care about first-round picks anymore. Third-round pick to Vancouver, Carson Soucy to New York.
I like that for New York.
They just replaced Lindgren with Soucy.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wyatt Johnson, 5 years, $8.4 million a year.
Oh my gosh,
That's a good contract.
that's a lot. I thought he would have gotten less.
actually.
He's on pace for like a point a game season. Last year he broke out. The year before he was a rookie. I think it's a great trade or a great contract.
I think based on the way the league's going too, caps going up, inflation going up in the league, I think it makes sense. Yeah.
It puts him in the realm of pretty much.
But you get paid more in Dallas, bud. Could have taken a cut.
Sure, but I don't think it really matters to him, to be honest, if they're offering that. But yeah, no, I think that's a good deal for both sides. Winnipeg and Florida traded goalies, but their backups, Tradger and Kakinen. I don't think they're both the third goalies.
Florida's made 2 goalie moves after trading Spencer Knight, so right?
Yeah, I think they don't really. It's literally just in case Bob gets injured, I guess.
Yeah.
Riley Smith to Vegas for Brendan Brisson and a third. Sure.
Yeah,
I like it for Vegas.
I like it for Vegas. So, yeah.
I like it for New York. I like Brendan Brisson. He's a pretty good player. He's the son of a agent.
You also hate Vegas.
I'm not big on Riley Smith, bro. Like, he's like a third line winger at this point in his career, and he's meh. Nico Sturm to Florida and a 7th for a 4th round pick. I actually think this is good for Florida. He's a pretty good 4th line center.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. No Florida opinions. Devils get Brian Dumoulin for a 2nd rounder and 50% retention.
I don't know. Like, okay. I mean, sure, Brian.
We also don't have to make a comment. We can just.
don't know
Good
if
for
I-
Anaheim for getting something, bro.
I
Sure.
like that for Anaheim. I don't know if I'm gonna say I like it that much for New Jersey.
It's definitely a player that New Jersey has on their team.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our standouts. So we each pick one team that we think is significantly improved in this deadline so far. We'll start with Homer.
Significantly improved. Okay, well, okay. I don't want to say. I'm just gonna just say it and put it out there. Okay, like yes, Dallas caught Rantanen, and that's a significant improvement. So yes, like they probably win that. But like I want to talk about in terms of teams' needs, like what they needed. I think did really well. They didn't do it today, but they're still the winners of the deadline for me, and it's Tampa Bay Lightning. I think they did give up a lot for Gordon Borkstrand, and it's obvious they don't care about their picks and whatnot, and I love that honestly. I think Tampa's the big winner of the deadline with what they need, and the fact that they're just going all in with it. So that's what I'm going with.
It's a fair enough pick.
All right. Mine is. Hear me out. Some teams are very good, and they look to make a move when you don't need to make a huge splash to make an impact. The Winnipeg Jets are the best team in the NHL. I personally think if they brought in some like big defenseman or top six forward, like that's not your issue. You're playing very well. You have a great goalie, so like bringing in someone who's going to make it just more annoying to play against your fourth line, as well as a big defenseman who's played for years that can be your 5 or 6. Because we've noticed in the past few years, like big defensemen, like all the cores that usually make the final 4 teams, all have like an average of like 6'2" or bigger for the defenseman a lot of the time. So getting Luke Schenn, I think these small moves just improve their lower end depth and continues to solidify them as a top team. Doesn't make a huge splash, but I think it's valuable adds to not rock the boat too much, but also slightly improve your team in ways that it's going to improve your playoff run.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
so he's like, I only like big trades. I think Beauvillier is.
I agree. I get what you're saying. I just don't know if I'd pick them as like the most improved or / best.
Okay. Well, we can't. It's not fun if we all just pick the big best teams.
No, I'm not saying
I
that.
agree I agree. I do agree with the sentiment. I get. I completely agree that some teams. Yeah.
But like, I think there's teams like I'm saying Tampa because I think they got what they needed, and it makes them better for like. For the
I think that you guys are both in line with what you're saying. It's just I just don't agree with the players that they got. I guess Schenn, I don't get Tanev. I think that's pretty much we can't really we're not going to agree on that. So it's not about big trades or small trade. I don't think Winnipeg needed to go for like a home run here anyway. So for me, my honorable mention is Pittsburgh because I think that they did well. They did what Washington did last year, and they're selling off their like expendable pieces for picks, getting anything for guys like Beauvillier and I don't know who else they traded. They just traded someone recently, Schenn, obviously. I think getting picks for guys like that is important when your team is in limbo like theirs is. I'm gonna go with the obvious one, and I'm gonna go Dallas because no one said them. Rantanen and Granlund are two pretty big friggin' additions on your team.
And they're friends. Go Finland. And Miro. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And adding guys like that to your they have 4 Finnish stars on their team. They have Hintz as well. I would
not call Lindell a star.
Hintz.
Oh. Wow, they have all the Finnish people.
Oh yeah, and they have Lindell as well. I forgot about that. Lindell is a star for Finland. Sure.
Yeah, for Finland, sure.
He was their best defenseman in
Mantapalo?
All right. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go with them. I like what Pittsburgh did. I also like what Chicago did. I think bringing in Spencer Knight is going to be good for them for the future. They finally have someone that they can at least look forward to in net. I don't know if he's going to pan out, but he's played well in Florida, and he started off great in that one game that he had in Chicago. So I do think that the Chicago and Pittsburgh are still going to be making some moves with like guys like Raquel and like other fringe players in Chicago. But yeah. All right. Evan, what do you think about Ottawa's deadline so far?
Pretty neutral. Like, do I think their roster is better? Not necessarily. Do I think it's worse? Not necessarily. But, I've always been under the impression of, like, even last year and this year, it's like the Senators aren't supposed to make the playoffs. They're supposed to be close, but they're not. It's not like, oh, the Leafs make it every year, or they have, like, 3 superstars or anything. Like, they're improving every year, or most years, and I think that's my assumption of them. So I think making a move of a piece and in a trade where you don't really lose value, I'm not going to say it was needed, but like can have value to show like we can make moves. Like, so we got to get on our horse and, really work, and then the band can stay together. So, yeah, that's really my thoughts.
Fair enough. Homer, just want to say Braden Chen did not want to waive his no trade clause to go to Toronto.
Yeah. That was the initial first choice, then they pivoted to Scott Laughton after he waived it.
I think they might have dodged a bullet, if I'm being honest. So
you what?
I think they might have dodged a bullet based off what the returns were looking like for Shen. Like,
yeah, apparently the price was going to be massive.
Yeah.
I would have. I haven't seen anything coming yet, but I would have liked to see one more move in terms of a right-handed D-man. I don't think it's going to happen anymore. I was expecting one of Scott Laughton or Braden Chen to end up in Toronto this year, based on all the rumors and Scott Laughton. And then as the days went on, I was like, okay, Braden Shen's asking price from St. Louis seems to be too high, so probably going to be Scott Laughton, and it ended up being Scott Laughton. So it's kind of what I expected the Leafs to get. So yeah, I'm good to go with it, I guess. I don't know. I don't think. I think this is a. I think this is a tough year for the Leafs anyway, as it tends to be. But I think it's a tough year for the Leafs to make it far in the playoffs, considering Tampa got a lot better, and chances are they're playing Tampa in the first round again. So, unless they win the division, which I don't know if they're going to. I think there's a chance even Tampa overtakes them with their moves. So, yeah.
Okay, one thing I wanted to say before we get to Washington, one other team that I think made a significant move well before the deadline, which really helped their team, was JT Miller in New York.
Yeah.
Like that has completely changed their outlook so far. He's been playing great. So yeah, I want to touch on that a bit. With Washington, I think obviously like you want players to go to your team and you want trades, et cetera, et cetera. I think that we kind of did well to not make the bad move, I guess. Like, if we made multiple trades like Beauvillier, then I would have been pretty pissed off. Making that one, I was like, it's fine. Like, I don't really care. We have another second rounder. It's fine. But we have someone like Leonard coming in after his college season is done, and we've seen rookies of his caliber make a pretty big impact for teams on playoff, like going towards the playoffs. I mean, Caulfield when he was on Montreal, when they went on that random run to the final, he was a pretty big addition for them. Like right before the playoffs, Makar in Colorado, their first playoff run as well, and he is a prospect that kind of fits in that category. So I think he's going to make a pretty big impact for us in our top 9. So I'm kind of happy that we didn't swing too big. And sometimes when teams mess up their chemistry a little bit too much, you end up like Vancouver did last year after the whole Elias Lindholm situation. So I'm a little pleased that we didn't go down that route. Like I think that messing up our chemistry would be a bigger detriment to us than swinging big and missing on it.
I also
So
think Montreal played it smart today by not making any moves.
yeah, like
Yeah.
some teams should just not do anything and see where it goes.
Yeah, exactly.
And last year we did well to sell off assets, and this year we're in a pretty good position with the players that we have. So I think we kind of just want to see if we can make a run. And I think any big moves that we make will be in the off season because we have a ton of cap space, and we have a generally young team after like our older core players. So I'm happy we didn't mess up the vibes. We may see something come in before 3 p.m., but I don't anticipate it being too jarring. So
Yeah.
yeah. So let's move on to our last part here. In each conference, who do we think the last 2 wildcard spots are going to end up being? We'll start with the Western Conference, and we'll start with Dummer.
Minnesota is going to drop to the first wild card, and Colorado is going to take the third place in the division. And I'm going to say, I think Vancouver squeezes in the second spot.
Interesting. Evan, for Western Conference?
Minnesota and St. Louis.
Interesting.
How about you?
They got the roughest road to get there. I'm going to say Minnesota, but I'm also going to say LA. I'm going to say that Calgary is going to go on a friggin' run here and get that third Pacific spot. This is also mostly because I want to see an Oilers Flames first round.
Okay, that would be good. That would be fun, yes.
And I think that the Farabee Frost moves are going to work well for them. So now here's to the probably more of a discussion here with wildcard in the Eastern Conference. Omer, I think we already know one of yours.
Yeah, so I'm taking the Rangers. I'm gonna say I think Rangers actually end up taking the first wild card.
Okay.
And I think the second wild card, I think Columbus is gonna make it. So I'm going Rangers and Columbus. I'm sorry, Evan. I'm thinking Ottawa's not gonna pull through, but they might. But but my prediction is Rangers and Columbus.
Rangers and Ottawa.
This is tough for me.
Washington.
Bro, we'd have to lose like every game to end up in a wild card spot.
Oh, I think we are forgetting in our prediction here though that Jack Hughes is out. Ugh, okay. Well.
That's one thing I have a contention with. Like I think the Jackets could catch the Devils.
Yeah, that's a possibility. But anyway.
I'm actually not going that route. I think the Jackets are gonna miss.
Okay.
I think I want to put Detroit in there. I don't know why. They have nothing to inspire me. But I just sure. I think they're going to be the second wild card spot, and then in between New York and Ottawa for the first. I don't like the Rangers, so I'll say Ottawa. Mostly because I want to see the Leafs win the division and then play Ottawa in the first round.
That'd be
great. Yeah.
And also I want to see Washington play Detroit because I think that's our best bet in the first round. So I don't want to play Columbus and I don't want to play New York.
Yeah, Columbus in the playoffs would be
purely based on vibes.
Yeah.
Like I think we match up well against Ottawa, but I think that would just be too much of a thing between me and Evan. So I prefer just not to go down that route. So yeah, give me Detroit and Ottawa. You know what? I'd freaking love to see Montreal somehow make it, but I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, no, I love a Toronto Ottawa first round, but I think I don't think Leafs are winning the division. I think Florida's probably just going to win the division.
I don't know. They have no Kachuk till playoffs.
Yeah, but let's see. I think Tampa can still win the division at this point.
For me, if I had to predict right now who's going to win between those 3 teams, I'd probably say Tampa.
I think Tampa has a shot, man. Yeah.
They're by far the hottest team in the league right now.
Yeah, they're so hot. It's crazy. And they just added 2 great players. Like, yeah.
They did almost lose to Buffalo the other night, but they just scored
Yeah,
like a bunch of
Kucherov got
goals.
benched on the power play.
Yeah, well, they can afford that right now.
Yeah.
All right, we'll end up there.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning into our trade deadline special podcast. We appreciate you listening to us, whether it's your first time or your 82nd time. We always appreciate it. You can find our podcast on the following:
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music,
Stitcher.
Radio, Stitcher, SiriusXM. Check us out on YouTube, and on Twitter /X, on not Snapchat, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on TikTok at the Unfortunate Diehards. And we'll see you next time.